There's this weird gap in football right now where the Euros and Copa America, they finished a couple weeks ago. Obviously, the league season's been done since May, and there's still 3 weeks until the club season starts up again. And I know that players are continuously saying that they don't have enough breaks, and there's too many games in not enough days. Every single competition we're playing in, it makes it so that we got 4 competitions, and we're playing at least 2 matches a week all season. It's nonstop, and right when the season ends, we have to go play international football. We've got the Euros or the Nations League or whatever, and I'm on their side because they have so many games. It's such a tough job beyond just the ability to play at such a high level and staying in shape and all the training that's needed beyond the games that are played. The schedule is absolutely brutal, and I am on their side for like 11 months out of the year. And then we get this gap where there's no games being played. And I know that the players, they want to go back to their home country and see their families and all that, but I'm bored. So really, what's more important? Maybe I am on UEFA's side right now. Maybe we should have more Champions League games. Fuck it, let's start it in late July. Let's get this thing on the road. I want to see some football. And I know the Olympics is going on right now, but that's like U23 football for the most part. It's not exactly what we're looking for. It doesn't hit the spot like club football is going to here in a few weeks. But Olympics have had some good games. I mean, Australia beat Zambia 6-5, which is an insane scoreline. You don't see it too often unless it's like YouTube All-Stars versus the Sidemen. In the Olympics, you're not seeing 6-5 all too often. That is electric. When a goal is being scored on average every 8 minutes of the match, that is cinema. That is exciting. And I'm glad the USA is doing well. Women's are out of their group. Men's just beat New Zealand 4-1, in which one of the kids from my school just scored in that game for New Zealand. He came here, got all the intel, spying on us just to use it against us. We did still end up winning, and that's honestly really cool. Good for him. But now we've got 3 weeks left until club season starts. And what's really the talk of the town is transfers. Fabrizio Romano, he's having a field day right now because people are talking, clubs and agents are making moves. And the one team that really stands out above the rest of them all during this time of the year is Chelsea. Now, this may be for a few different reasons. The first reason is the fact that they do have a lot of money. But a lot of clubs have a lot of money. So, why are Chelsea always on the headline? Well, it's because they have a lot of money, and they don't really got a lot going on for the rest of the year anymore, because they don't win trophies. Ever since they won the Champions League and the league a few years back and Todd Boehly took over the club, it just seems like they throw money away. And they have so many players to choose from, and they send them out on loan, and they've got just so much money that they buy players and positions that they already have good players in, and then it forces this competition for playing time against absolutely star-studded players that you just don't really see even in some of the other big clubs. And Manchester United is another culprit of this, and I think it actually plays a very big factor in the lack of success of these clubs recently, because what will happen is they might sign a really good player, like for Manchester United, like Jadon Sancho. They'll sign him, and he won't give the immediate results right away. Integrating him into the team chemistry may not be there yet, and they just pull him. And what happens is then they bring in the next guy, or, they'll start Antony for a match, and then Antony will maybe not have built that chemistry quite yet. And then they'll put Marcus Rashford out on the right for the next game. And then they'll try Jadon Sancho for 15 minutes in that match. And they keep going back and forth, and just doesn't allow for any cohesion or chemistry or really identity for any of these players. And it honestly hurts the players' individual confidence as well. Whereas Jadon Sancho we saw for Dortmund, even if he shows signs of inconsistency at times, against PSG, he in the Champions League, he was the best player on the pitch. And it wasn't close on that day. He has that ability if you can bring it out. And I think that Jadon Sancho had that confidence at Dortmund. And now he has gone back to Manchester United because it was just a loan. And now he's back at United, and so Erik ten Hag, who has obviously had feuds with him in the past, now has to deal with that again. And we'll see if Jadon Sancho can play for Manchester United like he plays for at Dortmund, which is good. and he hasn't done that at United quite often yet. Now, Chelsea, however, have it even worse because they throw millions, like hundreds of millions of pounds at players that just honestly probably aren't worth that much. And last year they didn't do all too hot, but towards the end of the season, Pochettino actually got some decent results out of them. They started to climb the table, and then they sacked Pochettino, which further proves my point. And here's the deal. I don't think Poch is a great manager. In fact, I think he is one of the most overrated managers in the top, like, that is regarded as a great manager. He gets thrown around from great club to great club to great club. Tottenham, PSG, Chelsea. I don't know how he convinces these clubs to give him a chance after just being a serial loser every single time. I mean, he even failed with that PSG team, which is incredibly bad. But how can you expect to find success if you change your manager every single few months? Every few months, you've got a new manager. Every year, you've got a new manager. Let them settle in. I am a firm believer that if you give them time, a good manager will make that change. And we saw it with Mikel Arteta, in which even Arsenal fans, were Arteta out in that first season, and now they are competing with one of the best club teams in the history of football, which is Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. He's up there with them. And that's a tough team to beat, that Manchester City squad. But any other era, he's up there winning titles. So I feel like you give them time, they can actually prove their worth. But that's just not how Chelsea operate. And now they're going out and they're trying to sign so many more players. Now they've got talks with Victor Osimhen for a season-long loan. Now this is after already signing Nicholas Jackson and Christopher Nkunku, who's back from injury. And I think Nkunku is absolutely world-class. He in the Bundesliga for RB Leipzig, I mean, he played in all aspects of the midfield and striker. Absolutely class. He is spectacular. And you bring in the competition of Victor Osimhen, who is also one of the best strikers in the world. Who's your first choice? Do you play with both of them? And then what happens to Nicholas Jackson? And the answer would be go on the bench. But either way, you're bringing in players to positions you've already spent so much money on. Why are you not giving them a chance, especially for like Nkunku, right? What is Osimhen going to help in this squad rather than just create more competitiveness for a position which we've seen hasn't worked out? Hasn't worked out for them. They need some sort of identity, some players who season after season are still playing for them and not being sent to other teams and then being brought in. They bring in new players. There's no chemistry there. And and I know that's a term that might be overused, but it is important at times, right? It is important to build that chemistry. Now, is this going to happen? I don't think so. Because as we can see here, Fabrizio Romano, 43 minutes ago, says that Osimhen's agent, Calenda, denies the loan move. He says that it's fake news. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. But Osimhen is maybe on the way out of Napoli, because they're looking for Romelu Lukaku, which is crazy to say when you already have Victor Osimhen, who's been one of the best strikers in the world for the past few years, to want to get Romelu Lukaku. But, Napoli, all power to you. You've been good for the last few years. Maybe you do know what you're doing. But it's not the only thing that Chelsea are looking at here. Obviously, they're looking for Federico Chiesa from Juventus. They're trying to get him to join, and then they're also, even though they signed Petrovic at goalkeeper and Robert Sanchez at goalkeeper in that last year, they're also looking for a new goalkeeper. I don't get it. Like, why do you want a new goalkeeper? Now, here is what they could... This is their opinion. This is just an article. It's not Chelsea themselves. But they think that they're going to sign Philip Jorgensen from Villarreal. Very good goalkeeper, young, but they have signed Robert Sanchez and Petrovic in the last year. Now, the good news for Chelsea is that there are a lot of players on this team that are starting to become what it might be a stretch to call them veterans, but it's the closest thing they've had to it other than Thiago Silva in the last few years. Reece James, if he can stay healthy, which is a crazy if. He never really stays healthy. Reece James, good leader of this team. He really is, and we'll bring him back up in a second. Levi Colwill going on his second year, had a good first year. Mark Cucurella coming off a great Euros run. Dewsbury Hall, decent player in the midfield. Moises Caicedo, they spent a bunch of money on him. Hopefully he ends up being decent because he's been pretty quiet in the last year. But I guess that you can kind of expect that from a defensive mid. Either way, Enzo Fernandez, kind of the face of Chelsea at this point. Maybe Cole Palmer at this point, but Enzo Fernandez. They also spent a lot of money on him, over $100 million. If you haven't heard, he's gotten himself into a little bit of a situation recently where he made the decision to, after beating Colombia in the final of Copa America, to sing a racist chant against France, who did not compete in Copa America. So I don't know why he did that. But it's caused a lot of issues, right? Wesley Fofana was the first one to call this out, right? Now, obviously, fans saw it. They thought, these chants, which were like crossing the line of borderline racist. They were over that line. It wasn't really borderline. It was a little bit racist. Wesley Fofana called it out. He said that it was absolutely disgusting, broad daylight racism, which is tough because he is a French player of African descent. Enzo Fernandez is on the same club team as him. It's absolutely insane because he's not also the only French player of African descent, even on Chelsea, because they have Axel Disasi as well. And so what happened is Enzo Fernandez is now getting reintegrated into this team, a team that he was already a very big part of in this last year, maybe, top 3 players for them in this last year. Reece James and Axel Disasi are helping reintegrate him into the team. And obviously Wesley Fofana not too happy with him. We'll see if that ends up being... and Badiashile as well. I forgot about him. All center backs, coincidentally. Another African descent Frenchman. So yeah, a lot of he's making enemies with players he doesn't want to make enemies with. Oh, and Nkunku as well. I mean, that's just the worst idea for Enzo Fernandez. When you have this many teammates of yours that are French of African descent, how about we don't sing chants that are racist against French people of African descent? That just doesn't add up to me. But now Marescu, who's the new manager of Chelsea, and honestly a good manager, he came from being an assistant for Pep Guardiola, which is always good, and then he had a very, very successful year with Leicester City. So he's a good manager. I really do think that he's a good manager. But Maresca, he's got a lot to deal with already. And I'll tell you what, their preseason friendlies, not going great. 2-2 draw to Wrexham is not a good start. And I know a lot of youngsters, not a ton of players, none of these guys were really playing in that. I know Levi Colwill was, because he got into a scuffle 2 minutes into that match with, James McLean of Wrexham. Probably would have been red cards if it was a real match. Either way, not looking good, but it would be very impressive if Enzo Maresca is able to actually bring this together for the beginning of the season and actually be playing well, because he's got a lot on his plate. This is one of the toughest jobs right now. Chelsea manager. Very, very, very tough job right now. But that's all I really wanted to talk about today was a couple of the transfers going on. We're going to get into a little bit more talk of this very shortly. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, guys.